What is good, guys? Welcome back to Behind the Dugouts, and I hope you are keeping well. First things first, apologies for the lack of content the last few days. Sick bug just got hit in the house. It was unexpected, come out of nowhere, and it was rife. And luckily, not myself, but I was on cleanup duty. So it was a tough few days, but it seems like we're coming through the end of it now. Hopefully, I don't manage to catch it to make it even worse. But apologies for the lack of content. I was going to do a match review. Obviously, I did do the live stream with my good friend Matt from the Stanford Sink, which was great. So if you did, come on in and comment, watch the video, thank you for tuning in. It was a great time. And for the first live stream, we got a win. So I cannot complain on that. I'm not going to do a full match review, just give you a few little thoughts on this, but there is a particular topic that I want to talk about in this video. For me, defensively, I thought we were better in this game. A clean sheet. I know. I didn't think I'd be saying that for a while. Yes, we got a clean sheet. Defense looked a little bit better. Some standout players for me. Pedro Neto, Moises Caicedo, as normal, Mr. Consistent. Cucurella, I thought, had a pretty good game. Even Garnacho, I thought Garnacho had a better game. And if he continues in this way, he will be a big problem for other teams. So hopefully he can take this little cameo that he had, the 60 minutes that he got, and take it into the next game. But I thought he had a really good game. A few things that were question marks, and one thing that put a little bit of a sourness on the game, a third red card. A third red card. 3 games, 3 red cards. It's gone past the point where it's now like coincidental or bad luck. It's becoming a pattern. It's becoming a problem, and it needs to be addressed very, very quickly. So that's the only thing, and albeit it was in the last minute of the game. However, and I'm pretty sure Matt from the Stanford Sing would agree with me on this one, it felt like we were playing with 10 men for most of the game anyway. Tyrique George, the Tyrique George experiment of him playing up front. It just does not work. It doesn't work. I don't know why we're doing it. And we were trying to come up with a reason, a theory as to why Maresca is using Tyrique George up front, especially in this Benfica game. I kind of knew that João Pedro wasn't going to start based on Maresca's comments in the press conference saying that, there was 3 players that had picked up something and it's looking unlikely. He was one of those players, so I didn't expect him to start. But he continues to use Tyrique George up front. And we're looking at it going, what is he actually doing in the game? And this is not a slander on Tyrique George, because I think Tyrique George is a really good player when he's playing on the left wing, which is his natural position. When he's up front, he's non-existent. He doesn't get involved in the game. He has these moments, and against Lincoln, obviously he played up front, he scored and he assisted, but that's against Lincoln. It's a completely different game. We're playing against Benfica, Champions League level opposition. To have a makeshift left winger into, making him into a striker, he basically was just there to occupy the defenders. That is literally all he was doing, because he wasn't dropping to get involved in the game. He wasn't linking up play. I don't think I even saw him take a shot, if I'm going to be honest. So all the attributes, even the pressing was, he pressed to a point and then he just sort of, gave up. So even, the attributes off the ball that we would want and expect from a striker, he wasn't doing them to the right level, to the max level that he should be. He doesn't look interested in playing up front. And I don't blame him, because it's not his position. And he was almost out the door in the transfer window. So if we're going to use him, at least use him in his natural position. Which brings me on to my problem. What are we doing with Marc Guiu? Like, what is the point of a Marc Guiu? Because we brought this guy back from loan, and yes, it was important because we needed 3 strikers with Liam Delap picking up that injury, and we're probably not going to see Liam Delap until January, like back at some type of full fitness. If we're lucky, he comes back early December and he can pick up some fitness pretty quickly and get back into the team. But I'd be very surprised if, he's like starting and finishing games before January. So I get that we had to bring back a striker. Obviously, we let Nicholas Jackson go, which still baffles me to this day. I still think we should have kept him. But we brought Marc Guiu back from loan. We've brought him back to watch football. That's what we've done. We've brought him back to have him sit on the bench or sit in the stands and watch games rather than go play football, which makes absolutely no sense to me. You are playing an out of place left winger up front instead of a ready made striker on the bench who is young, youthful, a point to prove. Explain to me how that makes the most sense. At least with Marc Guiu, I get his finishing right. His finishing is at the level of what I expect a very young player to be. You know, it's very inconsistent. He has good moments, he has bad moments. It's what I expect from a player at that age with not as much experience in the game. But he's a decent finisher. He can definitely hit a ball. He can score goals. We've seen it. You know, Maresca, and we'll get into Maresca in a bit, but Maresca has seen him play. It's not like he's come in this transfer window and we know nothing about him. He's just turned up. We've had him for a whole season. He's played in the freaking Conference League for us. He's scored goals. He was the top goal scorer in the Conference League until he got his injury. And yes, it's a Conference League, but we've got to remember this is a young player that we're talking about. So for him, that is a big step up. But his off the ball work, he is one hell of a presser. He presses, and he presses with intent, not just needless running. He presses with intent to win that ball back. And occasions he does win. How many times have we seen him trap defenders and trap goalkeepers because of his relentless pressing? He does link up. He's good for a header. As I said, he's got a good finish on him. All the attributes that you want in a striker is just sitting there. It's just sitting there on the bench, gathering dust. And he cannot get a minute on the pitch. Which brings me into my theory as to why. And this has been, put around, it's doing the rounds at the moment on social media. And I sort of mentioned it in the live stream. There is a theory that Chelsea want to send Marc Guiu back on loan again. But because he's already played for Sunderland and has gone on loan to Sunderland, if he then plays 1 minute for us, we can't send him back on loan because he has played for 2 clubs in a season, which is just ludicrous. So you've just literally brought him back. And it makes me think, was the Sunderland loan not what they thought it was going to be? Because he was a third choice striker in Sunderland. He wasn't going there to be the main man, which when we're sending players like Marc Guiu who want to be pushing for even a second choice or a starting spot in the league, they need to be going to get first team starting football, not, or at least second choice at absolute minimum, but not go to a third choice at a Sunderland team. Like the loan itself didn't really make sense. And if that's the case, well, have we not done our due diligence when we're setting up the loan, which could very much be the case with the way that the ownership and the sporting directors do their business and in some occasions. But if that was the case, then surely we should have sent him somewhere else. And okay, we've brought him back, but we cannot cope with only having João Pedro. And I can't be seeing Tyrique George starting up front. So we've brought him back, used the guy. And you can't tell me that, because there's this, again, stories that Maresca doesn't trust him. Well, he trusted him enough to use him last season. And he rewarded the trust with goals. He scored goals. So you can't tell me that given the opportunity, if needed, like last when we played Benfica and João Pedro couldn't start that game, he would have offered, me personally, he would have offered more than what Tyrique George did up front. And if he was, if João Pedro wasn't fit for the Liverpool game, I would prefer to see Marc Guiu up front because at least I know he's going to put pressure on the likes of Van Dijk and Konate. But for Maresca not to use him at all, and this is where you talk, this is where you think about like who are we blaming here? Who are we pointing a finger at? Because it's easy just to point a finger at, the top. And it could be the top. You don't know. But if it's the case that Maresca doesn't rate him and he never wanted him to come back in the first place, then this is on Maresca because you've got the player back. You needed a third striker. You've got to use him. There's no point. I've said it before. There's no point sending a message now. Don't do it at the detriment of the team because we need a striker, so put him on. But if it's the sporting directors, whoever made the decision to bring Marc Guiu back, and now they're telling Maresca, well, we want to send him on loan, you're not allowed to use him, then it's on the directors because that's pointless. Tell a manager you're getting a player and then tell him he's not allowed to use him is just utter BS, to be honest. And unfortunately, you're never going to know the real story because it's never going to come out. But if we don't see Marc Guiu get any minutes and he does end up going back on loan in January, then I would point it more towards the sporting directors than Maresca because there's no way that I can see that if Maresca's got a strike on the bench, he's not willing to use him. I just don't see that. I can't see that. And using a left winger that doesn't play a striker out of position, again, it just doesn't make sense. But like I said, there are quite a few things that don't make sense when it comes to this club. But I'd love to get your thoughts on this situation. For me personally, the way that it's looking, I think Marc Guiu is going to be going back on loan, and I don't see him getting any minutes. So to me, this whole situation was pointless. And was it just done to appease the fans, even though it didn't work because we wanted Nicholas Jackson back at that point? Because we'd rather have a Nicholas Jackson in the team right now than a Marc Guiu that's not trusted or a Tyrique George playing up front 100%. But personally, the way that I see the fact that he's not getting any minutes, the whole Lincoln situation where they asked last minute if he was allowed to play in it. Again, why are you not doing that days before? Why are you doing it on the day of the game a few hours? Makes no sense. I see him going back on loan and I don't see him getting any minutes. But I'd love to be proven wrong. And of course, you can argue the fact that he's on the bench for some games. And what's the point? It just takes up a spot. Oh, yeah, I get that. But again, he's on the bench. Why is he not being used? So it goes both ways. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Do you think this is just a whole farce and he is going to be going out on loan and he's not going to see any minutes? Or do you think Maresca is going to use him? Is it just the fact that he doesn't trust him? And if that's the case, then no, we've got to be pointing fingers at Maresca here because there's no, like I said, no point sending messages now at the detriment of the team. It's pointless. But let me know in the comments below. Love to get your thoughts. For now, guys, that is all from me. And if you are enjoying the content, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you in the next one.